To begin with, how would you define what professional wrestling is?
In general, as a whole, wow, holy, how do I even start? I mean, it's a spectacle, it's theater, it's physical combat, it's entertainment. I mean, I don't think I can put it in like one word specifically. I mean, it's so many things, it depends who you're talking to, I guess. I mean, when I was a kid, when I grew up, I was always attracted to like the athleticism and like just the drama and the spectacle of the whole thing. So yeah, for me, I don't know, it's a lot of different things at the same time, for sure.
And what does pro wrestling mean to you personally?
To me, oh man, that's quite a deep question for me actually. I mean, the reason I got into wrestling was when I started to watch it as a kid. I was obsessed with it. I would watch it, I mean, as much as I could, every day if I could. So for me, it's like a lifelong hobby that's turned into something that I love tremendously. And I think if I didn't have it, I don't think I would have a lot of things in my life that like particularly like really satisfy me and make me incredibly happy. So again, it's a very complicated answer. It's more than just one word. For me, like wrestling is like everything in my life pretty much.
Do you have any idols?
Idols, yeah, I mean a couple. I think like growing up, everyone, like everyone else, I really liked in the 90s like The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H and these kind of characters. But if I had to pick one, it's definitely Chris Jericho. After I read his first book was when I decided that I was going to start training to be a wrestler. So if I have to pick an idol for myself, it's him for sure.
How were your early days as a wrestler?
Sore, scary. Yeah, I was terrified a lot because when you first start, you don't know if you're going to be good at it, if it's going to last long. You know, you don't know anything about it aside from what you've seen on TV. So my first experience, I mean, my first day training, I was terrified. I arrived at a building in Dublin that I had no idea where it was, who anybody was. Like I didn't know any of these people, and then I had to like learn how to get the shit beat out of me by them. So it was the first time I ever stepped into a ring. It was terrifying but incredibly exciting. So it was a life-changing experience.
And then why did you decide to come to Barcelona to wrestle?
I didn't move here specifically to wrestle. I moved here to move away from Ireland to get a different life. And at the time I'd been out of wrestling in Ireland for like around 2 years, I think. I hadn't wrestled full time. And when I moved here, I decided I wanted to try and like keep it going and like try and rediscover it. So I literally just, when I first moved here, Googled wrestling schools in Spain and Barcelona. And I was lucky enough that Riot was here. And I figured that they wouldn't understand me if I emailed them because my Spanish was terrible. So I just arrived at the door and like was like, hey, can I come train here? So yeah, it wasn't really a moving here to wrestle. It was like I moved here and then I decided that because I'd taken such a long time away from it, I needed to get back to it. So
in which year did you come here?
I've been here almost 5 years. So what year is it now? 2021. 2016, 2017, more or less. Yeah, that's when I moved here originally.
By now, how would you describe the current wrestling scene in Spain or in Barcelona?
I mean, even compared to when I first arrived here, it's grown so much. When I first got here, the Spanish scene and like how much attention the rest of Europe was paying was starting to grow for sure. But over the last few years since I've got here, it's definitely exploded. I mean, there's a lot of things to thank for that. I mean, particularly A-Kid being signed to WWE, and now a lot of people are looking at Spanish wrestling more than they were before. So yeah, it's definitely exploded in the last 4 or 5 years.
Which do you think it has been the turning point for that?
The turning point? I mean, I think there was 2 big ones. The first one was when A-Kid first signed. Because before that, there wasn't a lot of attention on Spanish wrestlers. I mean, you had a lot of like South American or Latin American wrestlers who everyone knew, but from Spain, not a lot of people knew. So when he first signed, I think it was the first turning point. And then I think when he won the UK Heritage Cup was the next big point, because it was a moment where WWE was saying that like they had trust in A-Kid. So it drew even more attention to the Spanish scene.
To you personally, that are a wrestler, which do you think are the main hardships of being a wrestler or fighting?
I mean, I don't experience so much now because, I mean, there's no shows happening. And also when I was wrestling a lot in Spain here, I wasn't moving around so much. But I think it's being away from your friends and your family. When I first started wrestling in Ireland, we would wrestle almost every weekend, like 4 or 5 days a week, like sometimes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I miss like birthday parties, family events, that kind of thing, just to be away somewhere else in Ireland wrestling. So I think probably most people would agree is when you start touring around and doing other stuff, it's not seeing people and missing out on events that, I mean, you should be there for, but you're trying to chase a dream, so you kind of have to find a balance, I think.
You're achieving a dream, but do you think that wrestlers in Spain are able to live from it?
Right now, I don't think so. I don't think there's a lot of money on the independent level to make like a full living just from Spain. If you want to make a living from it, you need to be traveling around Europe or to the US like a lot. I mean, obviously that's very difficult now with everything being shut down. But just from here, no, you need to expand. You need to wrestle in other countries in order if you wanted to make a living.
You did have an international perspective, having fought both in Ireland and here. Do you think that the scene here is much different to that in Ireland?
Yeah, I think it's changing and they are becoming more similar the bigger like, European wrestling gets. But when I first moved here, for example, most of the guys in Riot, and I don't know about the rest of Spain, but most of the guys in Riot did like lucha libre style, which is from Mexico, Latin America. Whereas in Ireland, when I first started, it's more like the typical British style, like lots of chain wrestling, hard hitting style. So the main difference for me was just how people wrestle. But I feel like now the styles are kind of intertwining here in Spain, and there is people wrestling that like more British style, a lot more grappling and or like chain wrestling and technical wrestling.
What do you think that is required, or what do you think that needs both the Irish and the Spanish scene to become more internationally known?
I mean, I guess the first thing is money. I mean, you know, if you don't have money, you can't grow a scene. And just like international exposure, which I think is happening now, which is great. Like here with Triple W in Madrid and with A-Kid being signed, has a lot more eyes on Spanish wrestling. And in Ireland, you've got OTT and guys like Fergal David and well, Finn Balor and guys like that who are drawing attention to Ireland. But I think if you want the independent scene to grow, you got to keep making stars and get people to want to watch what you're doing, and the scene will grow itself. But there's both countries have definitely exploded in the last few years.
You've spoken a lot about growth in general as countries, but by now, which do you think is the future for TJ Charles?
Oh, for me, wow, I don't know. I mean, obviously the dream is you would like to sign with someone, you know, whether it be WWE or AEW, or I mean, I would love to go to Japan. And obviously with this year, it's very difficult to see where I'll go or what I will do. I mean, short-term goal, I want to wrestle A-Kid here in Spain. I think it's something that could be really fun. I would really enjoy it. And I think it would be really beneficial for my own career. Long-term, yeah, I would love to sign with someone, you know, sign with one of the big companies and make this my living.
By now, have you felt any major changes in your life since you became a wrestler?
Changes? I mean, physical changes, yeah, you see it from when you're like working out or you're exercising because you need to take care of yourself. I've definitely become more cynical mentally. You know, you start to, I don't know, not distrust people, but you start to, I don't know, wrestling is a tough world and it kind of like, it can beat you down a little bit, especially if you're doing it for a long time. But I mean, positively, it's definitely made me a better person and I've met a lot more people. I'm more open to meeting other people too, just from wrestling. So, I mean, it does some negative things too, but I think mostly it's been a positive impact on my life.
And in general, which do you see is the future for Spanish wrestling?
The future? You mean person or what do we need to do?
For the industry.
For the industry. I mean, obviously A-Kid, as we've mentioned a few times, is going to be the future for Spanish wrestling for now. But there's a lot of guys here still, you know, who wouldn't be as well known as him. I mean, here in Riot, we've got Carlos Vega, for example, or Carranza, who are two guys I would consider would be what we need to be looking for going forward, you know. And then in Madrid, you've also got Carlos Romo, A-Kid's tag partner, who's incredibly talented, and that's another guy and who's going to be helping build the future of Spanish wrestling. So, I mean, even if A-Kid leaves forever and stays in WWE and doesn't come back here, I think what we have here is enough that the scene will still do very well after he's gone.
Getting back to you and your early days, how did your close ones and your family, what did they think about you becoming a wrestler?
Uh, weirdly enough, I kept it secret for about a few months, maybe 6, 7 months, almost a year. I think it was because I was partially embarrassed because everyone knew I liked wrestling, but I don't think anyone expected me to do it. And also I was afraid of failing it. So I didn't want to tell anyone till I was sure. And then my family found out because someone posted a picture of me in a ring on Facebook. But my mum and my parents, my dad, my sister, all my family have always been incredibly supportive. I just kept it secret thinking they wouldn't be, but it turned out that they love it. I mean, for example, like my family have flown here to see me wrestle in Barcelona. So I think I was more the worried person, and it turned out that they didn't care at all, and they were very supportive.